We're going to take a closer look tonight at a few words in the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation under God. The key question, do the words under God violate separation between church and state? A federal appellate court last year said they do. The case went to the U.S. Supreme Court today for argument. First, ABC's Manny Medrano is at the court.
Okay.
Outside the Supreme Court, passions on both sides.
It is not a Christian theocracy. It is a free country.
All right, so we're free to pray.
So why not have...
Michael Newdow, an atheist and arguing his own case, said including the words under God in the Pledge of Allegiance means that his 9-year-old daughter is being coerced. It's indoctrinating the children. Newdow said the words make the pledge religious. To say this is not religious seems to me somewhat bizarre. The court seems skeptical. Justice Breyer. The pledge has a long history of being evoked for civic purposes. Justice O'Connor. Reasonable people could look at the pledge as not constituting a prayer. Justice Ginsburg added the pledge was not exactly like a hymn you'd sing in church. In 1954, at the height of the Cold War, Congress voted to insert the words under God as a rebuke to communism. Newdow called that divisive. Chief Justice Rehnquist noted the vote was unanimous. That doesn't sound divisive. Newdow responded, only because no atheist could get elected to public office. That elicited applause, seldom heard in the High Court, from Newdow supporters, leading Rehnquist to threaten to clear the courtroom if it happened again. After oral arguments, Newdow insisted that he knows what's best for his daughter.
I am a parent. I have an absolute right to know that when my child goes to the public schools, she's not going to be indoctrinated with any religious dogma.
The child's mother, a devout Christian who supports the pledge, disagreed.
We should be proud of our heritage and proud of our history and not succumb to popular culture.
Attorneys for the school district defended the pledge, noting that participation is voluntary.
It's not an endorsement of religion. It's not favoring one religion over another or religion over non-religion.
All this may be moot if the court decides that Newdow lacks the legal authority to sue the school district on behalf of his daughter. That's because he's locked in a custody battle with the child's mother. But given the tone of the questions today, that seems unlikely. So sometime this spring, the High Court will decide whether or not the words under God in the pledge are unconstitutional. Manny Medrano, ABC News, the Supreme Court.
There is not much question where the public stands on this issue. A new poll found that 87% of Americans want to keep the pledge as it is. It's estimated that about 60 million school children recite the pledge every day in the United States. What do some of them think about the controversy? Here's ABC's Dean Reynolds.
It has been a classroom habit for half a century.
One nation, under God, indivisible.
The pledge with the words under God, what President Eisenhower called a reaffirmation of the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage and future, language that has retained overwhelming popularity to this day.
I have no problem whatsoever with that phrase being in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I think it should stay in the Pledge of Allegiance. I think it's part of it.
But for the tiny minority who disagree with that view, under God is over the line.
It makes it a religious statement in a public school, and it doesn't belong there.
Well, I don't think God has to be mentioned in the schools.
At the Franklin Public School in Chicago, the 8th graders have been reciting it ever since kindergarten.
You think about the words?
Not that much.
So it's just something you memorized?
Yeah.
We're not actually pledging ourselves to God, but we're doing it more so to our country.
However fraught with significance the words may have seemed in Washington today, in this classroom, the debate is a distraction. It's okay if you want to use the words, and it's okay if you don't.
It's been 50 years, and, nobody in those 50 years brought it up, and now they're just making a big issue out of it.
These students say they spend much more time thinking about things like the war in Iraq than the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's kind of a pointless issue to be fighting about.
It's just one more thing that is taking away from all the more important issues in our country.
More important than two little words. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Chicago.